Welcome to Real English Voices. I am so happy you are here with us today.
And I am so excited for today's topic. Hello, everyone. This was going to be a really special episode because we are diving into something that feels impossible for so many people.
It really does. It is the holy grail of language learning. It is that moment when you stop translating in your head and you actually start thinking in English.
Exactly, that magic switch. You know, Tom, for the longest time, I thought thinking in English was a myth. I thought people were lying when they said they did it. I assumed everyone was just translating really, really fast in their heads.
I know exactly what you mean. It feels like a superpower that only other people have. I remember when I first started learning, my brain was like a busy highway. I would hear a sentence in English, translate it to my native language, think of a response in my native language, translate that back to English, and then finally speak. By the time I was ready to talk, the conversation had moved on.
Oh, that is the worst feeling, the lag. It is like watching a movie where the audio is out of sync with the video. You feel slow, you feel clumsy, and honestly, it makes you feel a bit stupid, doesn't it? Even though you are intelligent, the language barrier makes you feel small.
That is such a powerful way to put it, Ria, making you feel small. That is the emotional toll of the translation trap. But today, we are going to break that down. We are going to talk about how we actually made that shift, because it didn't happen overnight for me, and I know it didn't happen overnight for you.
No, definitely not. It was a messy, slow journey. But looking back, there were specific things I did that changed everything. And they weren't complicated grammar exercises. They were mindset shifts.
So let's start there. What was the first thing you did that actually worked? Because I think a lot of our listeners are tired of hearing just practice more. They need something concrete.
Right. Well, the first step for me was admitting that translation was actually hurting me. I had to stop treating English like a code I had to decipher. I had to start treating it like a direct experience. I remember I was sitting in a cafe looking at a cup of coffee. In my head, I would usually say the word for coffee in my mother tongue and then equal sign, coffee.
Right, the equation.
Yes, the equation. But that day, I decided to just look at the object and force my brain to say coffee. No translation. Just the image of the steaming cup and the word coffee. It felt weirdly naked, like I was missing a safety blanket.
I love that image, the safety blanket. Your native language is safety. It is home. Leaving it behind feels scary. I did something very similar. I started with what I call the nursery method.
The nursery method? I haven't heard you call it that before. Tell me more.
Well, think about how babies learn. They don't translate. They just point and name. So I started walking around my apartment like a toddler. I would touch the table and say, table. I would open the fridge and say, fridge. Milk. Apple. I felt absolutely ridiculous. I mean, here I was, a grown man, walking around my kitchen, pointing at things and muttering single words.
But that is so important. You have to be willing to look a little bit foolish to make progress. If you're too cool to point at a fridge, you're going to stay stuck in translation mode.
Exactly. And the key was that I wasn't translating. I wasn't thinking of the word in my language first. I was forcing a direct link between the physical object and the English word. It's about burning a new pathway in your brain.
It's like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you do it, it's hard. You have to push the grass aside. That's the translation. But if you walk the same path every single day, eventually the grass gets flattened and you have a clear path. That's what direct association is.
That is a beautiful metaphor. And once I got comfortable with single words, I moved to step 2. This was the game changer for me. Narrative mode.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Is this where you narrate your life like a movie?
Yes, it sounds crazy, but stick with me. I would be making breakfast, and I would start talking to myself in my head. I would say, okay, I'm taking the eggs out. I'm cracking the egg. Now I'm searching for a fork.
Did you do this out loud or silently?
Both. If I was alone, I did it out loud. If I was on the bus or at work, I did it internally. The internal monologue is where the real magic happens, because nobody can hear you make mistakes.
That's the best part, the safety of your own mind. I used to do that too, but I found it so exhausting at first. My brain would actually get tired physically. Did you feel that?
Oh, absolutely. It is a workout. After 10 minutes of narrating my morning routine, I would need a break. But that exhaustion is a good sign. It means your brain is building muscle. It means you're actually processing, not just reciting.
I remember one day I was narrating my walk to the subway. I was thinking, the sky is blue, the wind is cold, that man is walking a dog. And then something happened. The dog barked, and I immediately thought, oh, that is loud. I didn't translate it. It just popped up. That is loud. I almost stopped walking. I was like, wait a minute, did I just think in English?
That moment. I remember my first moment like that too. It catches you off guard. It is almost effortless, which is ironic because of how much effort you put in before that. It's like riding a bike. You wobble, and then suddenly you're just gliding.
But Tom, what about when you don't know a word? That is where I used to get stuck. I would be narrating, I am washing the, and then I would realize I didn't know the word for the specific pot I was holding. Then I would panic and switch back to my native language.
That is a critical point. That is where most people quit. They hit a gap in their vocabulary and they retreat to safety. The trick is to talk around it. Don't switch languages. Describe it. If you don't know the word for colander, say, the bowl with holes in it for the water.
Describing the unknown. That is a skill in itself. It keeps your brain in English mode. You're not letting yourself off the hook.
Right. You have to stay in the English channel. Imagine your brain is a radio. You cannot switch frequencies just because there's a little static. You have to tune through it.
I think another big barrier for me was emotional. I felt like I had a different personality in English. In my native language, I'm funny, I'm sarcastic, I can be deep. In English, especially in the beginning, I felt like a child. I felt simple. It was frustrating to not be me.
This is something we don't talk about enough, the identity crisis of language learning. You feel like a flatter, duller version of yourself. And because you don't like that version, you avoid thinking as that version. You want to go back to your native language where you're smart and witty.
Yes, it's an ego thing. I had to learn to be humble. I had to accept that English Rhea was a bit younger, a bit simpler, and that was okay. She was growing.
English Rhea was growing. I love that. You have to nurture that new persona. You know what helped me with that? Talking to myself in the mirror.
Really? The mirror technique? That is brave.
It is terrifying. You look at yourself in the eyes and you have a conversation. But it helps you connect the English voice to your own face. It helps bridge that gap between who I am and who I sound like. I would ask myself, how are you feeling today, Tom? And I would force myself to answer honestly in English. Not just, I am fine, but I am actually a little bit anxious about this meeting.
Connecting English to your real emotions. That's deep, because usually we learn English for logic, for business, for ordering food. We rarely use it for our feelings. But thinking happens on an emotional level too.
Precisely. If you only use English for logistics, you will never truly think in it. You have to use it for your internal world, your worries, your dreams, your anger. Have you ever tried to be angry in English?
Oh, that is hard. When you stub your toe, the first word that comes out is never in English. It's always the native curse word.
Always. That's the ultimate test. But eventually, even that changes. I remember the first time I dropped a plate and shouted, "Oh, shoot!" instead of, well, you know what I would have said. I stood there looking at the broken plate thinking, wow, even my reflexes are becoming English.
That brings up another interesting technique I tried. I started making up scenarios in my head, fake arguments. I would imagine I was on a podcast, funny enough, just like this one, or being interviewed by a famous host, and I would have full conversations with imaginary people while I was in the shower.
The shower debates. I think everyone does this, but doing it intentionally in English is brilliant. It removes the pressure of a real person staring at you. You can take your time, you can rephrase things.
And you can win every argument.
That's the best part. You're always the smartest person in the shower. But jokes aside, that visualization is key. You're simulating reality. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a vivid visualization and a real conversation. It builds the same neural pathways.
So we have naming objects, we have narrating your day, we have the mirror technique and imaginary conversations. But Tom, what happens when you get tired? Because I know listeners are thinking, I can't do this 24/7.
And you shouldn't. That is a recipe for burnout. You cannot force your brain to think in English all day long from day one. It is like training for a marathon. You don't run 40 kilometers on your first day. You run around the block.
So, setting specific English thinking windows is better.
Yes, set a timer. Say, for the next 10 minutes, while I fold the laundry, I am only allowed to think in English. When the timer goes off, you can go back to your native brain. It creates a boundary. It makes it manageable.
I like that. It turns it into a game. And as you get better, you extend the time. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour.
Exactly. And eventually, the boundaries blur. You find yourself forgetting to switch back. That is when you know you have made it.
There's one more thing I want to touch on, Tom. The role of input, because we can't output thoughts if we don't have the input. I found that on the days I listened to a lot of English podcasts or watched a lot of English YouTube, thinking in English was so much easier.
It's fuel. You cannot drive a car without gas. Listening is the gas. If you surround yourself with the flow of the language, your brain naturally mimics that flow. It's called the echo effect. You hear a phrase, and it echoes in your mind.
The echo effect. I've experienced that. It's like when you listen to a catchy song and it gets stuck in your head. You want English to be the song stuck in your head.
Yes, and that is why immersion is so powerful. But you don't need to move to an English-speaking country to immerse yourself. You can create a bubble. Put your phone in English. Watch your news in English. Listen to podcasts like this one.
It's about creating an environment where English is the default, not the exception. You know, sometimes I would wonder if I was losing my native language. Did you ever fear that? That by thinking in English you were betraying your roots?
That is a very deep fear. I think many people have it. They worry they will lose their connection to their culture. But I found the opposite happened. Being bilingual, truly bilingual in my thoughts, made me appreciate the unique beauty of both languages. They are different lenses to view the world.
That is a lovely perspective. Different lenses. So when you think in English, you see the world slightly differently than when you think in your native tongue.
100%. In English, I tend to be more direct, more pragmatic. In my native language, I'm more descriptive, maybe a bit more emotional. I like having access to both versions of myself. It's not a betrayal, it's an expansion.
I love that. It's an expansion of who you are. I hope our listeners really hear that. You are not losing anything. You are gaining a whole new world.
Ria, before we wrap up, I want to ask you about dreams. Have you ever dreamt in English?
Oh, the ultimate milestone. Yes, it happened about 2 years into my serious study. I woke up and I was so confused because in the dream I was arguing with a bus driver in London and I was shouting in fluent English. I woke up smiling.
That is the subconscious stamp of approval. It means the language has gone so deep, it's operating without your conscious control. That is a beautiful moment. But to anyone listening who hasn't dreamt in English yet, Don't worry, it's rare and it takes time. It's just a fun bonus, not a requirement.
Absolutely. Don't stress about the dreams. Focus on the laundry. Focus on the coffee cup. Focus on the walk to the subway. The small moments add up to the big shift.
So, let's recap for everyone tuning in. To start thinking in English, you need to stop translating. Start by naming the objects around you directly. Then narrate your actions like a movie. Talk to yourself in the shower, in the mirror, in your head.
And be patient with yourself. Embrace the feeling of being fake or simple for a while. It's just a phase. And remember to flood your brain with input so you have enough English inside you to form thoughts.
It's a journey, not a destination. Every time you catch yourself translating and you gently switch back to direct thinking, that's a victory. Every single time.
I want to challenge everyone listening today. As soon as this podcast finishes, take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Look around the room you're in and think about what you see in English. Don't translate, just see and think.
That's a great challenge. Start right now, not tomorrow, right now.
Thank you so much for listening to Real English Voices. We know how hard you're working, and we are so proud of you.
We really are. Keep talking, keep listening, and most importantly, keep thinking. You've got this.
See you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.